Hi everyone, this is Ramesh. I'm starting a new series, one topic at a time. And the topic for this week is three-tier pre-authorization. And before we get into the details, just a quick definition of pre-authorization. When you visit a hotel, like you are checking into a hotel or you are renting a car. So in these kind of scenarios, the type of transaction that merchant performs is generally called pre-authorization, so that merchant can initially block some amount from your card account, and then once you check out or probably you return the card, they can complete this authorization. Okay, so most of us assume that, or probably we have built an understanding with time, that the pre-authorization is a two-tier transaction from the issuing perspective. But on the acquiring side, actually pre-authorization can be, three-tier transaction or three-leg transaction. So what we assume is like pre-authorization, the first leg is the authorization when the amount is getting blocked, and the last leg is the pre-auth completion. But eventually, from the acquiring perspective, there can be an intermediate step, which is a pre-authorization inquiry. So what's the purpose of it? I'll first of all, help you understand a business use case. Think of it like you are checking into a hotel, and a merchant, whosoever is there on the reception, he or she is performing a pre-authorization from a terminal one, okay, which is a terminal, just any standard point of sale terminal. So just for understanding purpose, let's assume this is terminal one, right? Now the merchant performs a pre-authorization, it goes to your issuer blocks the amount, and then that's how the merchant receives the response back. So think of it like you have placed a block of $1,000. Okay, so what merchant gets as part of this request is like it generates a stand number, which is generated from the point of sale terminal. There's an amount, terminal ID, a lot of all ISO data elements are there. And this particular transaction is actually stored in the terminal memory. But what typically happens now, you're checking out from the hotel, probably maybe fifth day, sixth day, and whatever, out after a few days of time, then you're checking out from the hotel. By the time you check out, it's not necessary that when you're checking out, the terminal which was used to perform the transaction, think of it like here, terminal one, the same terminal will be used to complete the transaction. It's not mandatory, to be very honest. It could be possible the terminal which was used earlier, maybe the batch has been settled and your authorization or pre-authorization has been cleared or removed from the terminal memory. Could also be possible that the terminal one is being used somewhere else. It is also possible that terminal one maybe has broken down or whatever has happened. Could also, anything can happen, to be honest. So it could be possible that you may not be able to perform, or merchant may not be able to perform the completion from the same transaction. So in this case, how the merchant will be able to complete is the question that we should understand here, or we should try to find an answer. So let's assume the pre-authorization was performed from terminal one. Now after 4 days, you're checking out. So merchant is using terminal two. What will happen now? Since the different terminal is getting used, in that particular terminal two, there's no reference to the original authorization, okay, because it's not the same terminal. So there's a different type of transaction, in this case, the pre-auth inquiry, as I mentioned, which a terminal can send to the acquiring host, either acquiring switch, whatever you want to call it, or they can be a middleware in between the point of sale terminal and the acquiring switch. So the point is like there should be a middleware system, or either a separate middleware or a kind of storage system or an acquiring host itself. The original pre-authorization would have been stored somewhere in the database. So the objective is based on the unique identifiers. If terminal 2 can fetch the data of the authorization or the previous authorization, which was performed 5 days before, then terminal will be able to receive all the required data elements like the car related information, the amount, the date, and the terminal ID, merchant ID, whatever was used for this particular authorization. Terminal 2 can also retrieve the same information with the help of either a middleware or with the help of some acquiring switch. So what merchant will do, merchant will obviously will have the receipt of the pre-authorization, will take the stand, which is a unique identification of a transaction from a given terminal. It will have the terminal ID, merchant ID, and all, okay, and probably the amount which was approved here, which was authorized here. So based on these 3 or 4 data elements, the terminal will send a pre-auth inquiry. to the acquiring host, will retrieve the information, and when it receives that information back, ultimately it has everything that is required to complete the transaction. So finally, the completion will be initiated and acquirer will receive the third leg of the transaction. So in an acquiring system, how many legs you are seeing term like the pre-authorization, the inquiry, as well as the completion. Now look at it from the issue perspective. Okay, issuer is not aware whether the inquiry has been done. That's not mandatory for us to send till the issuer. It's only between the terminal and the acquirer. And so is the case for the completion also. Typically, what happens in case of Visa, MasterCard, dual message system is it is not mandatory for acquirer to even submit the completion advice, which can be MTI 0120, or if it is single message system, it can be 0220, whatever it is. It is not mandatory for acquirer to submit this completion advice to the issuer via the card network like Visa or MasterCard. It's not mandatory. But what's mandatory is like once the transaction is completed, it has to be included into the clearing file. So what acquirer can do here is, as part of the completion at the end of day, maybe if acquirer is following one statement cycle or maybe settlement cycle, one or multiple settlement cycle, whichever comes the next, the acquirer can generate the I would say the clearing file, can send it to card network can send it to issuer. So this is how issuer will receive the second leg. The first leg was the pre-authorization. Now they are receiving the completion as part of the clearing. Till the time they receive the clearing, the issuer cannot post the pre-authorization to the customer account. So eventually for issuer, it's two leg only. Ultimately, even not even two leg. It's just one leg of authorization, which is received as part of the online authorization through the direct online connectivity. And the other one is the standard clearing cycle of any dual message system that issuer receives. But in some cases, this acquirer can actually send the completion as an offline advice through the online connectivity to the endpoints of Visa, MasterCard, and then Visa, MasterCard sent to issuer as an MTI 0120 offline advice message, and they can send it to issuer. If acquirer is sending it to issuer, then ultimately how many legs issuer is receiving? So at the end of the day, what issuer is going to receive is ultimately three legs. First one is the pre-authorization, mostly MTI 0100, which is an online message. Then the completion advice could be possible. Yes, acquirer is sending MTI 0120, but again to the Visa Mastercard endpoint, and Visa Mastercard will send to issuer. And then the third leg is acquirer is also going to submit the completion as part of the clearing. That's a standard clearing process of the reconciliation, and this is what our IPM clearing file for Mastercard or Visa based to clearing file for the Visa. That's how the acquirer can submit it to the card network, and then card network will submit it to the issuer. So this is how the pre-authorization can typically be completed in 2 or 3 steps with respect to the issuer, but with respect to the acquirer, it can be 3 or 4, depending on how the acquirer system is configured or probably designed to handle the pre-authorization. So thank you so much for watching. I'll be back with another video soon. Until then, keep learning and stay in touch.